Good to see you, Jeff. So, I mean, very wild claims coming from the former president, very dangerous rhetoric. And he is saying quite emphatically that he wants to see Liz Cheney subjected to gunfire. Liz Cheney has responded, but has there been any more response coming from even the Trump campaign?
Frederica, I mean, this is where things stand 4 days before an election. That is the language from the man who's applying to be commander-in-chief once again. There's been no reaction from the Trump campaign or other Republicans, but look, if past his prologue, things will follow a similar pattern of outrage and perhaps denials. But moving forward here, the question is, politically speaking, does any of this actually move the electorate? My guess is no at this late date. But Liz Cheney, of course, has emerged as one of the biggest surrogates and supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris. And you really do not have to look much farther than that to show just how politics here in the U.S. Sort of upside down in this election. She, of course, a longtime conservative Republican supporting the Democratic candidate to try and block Donald Trump. All of this comes together as voters in these 7 battleground states have been watching this campaign up close. There's exhaustion from it, there's no doubt. We've been talking to many of them as they make up their choices, what's on their mind here in the final days.
I'm ready for it to be over.
Dave Flannery is exhausted by the election.
It's getting more and more difficult to listen to all the vitriol and that sort of thing.
From his apple orchard in battleground Wisconsin, he's at a front row seat to the caustic campaign. When we met earlier this year, Flannery was fed up with the political division and dysfunction.
What else can you think about it? It's a mess.
How does it get fixed?
I wish I knew.
With the election days away, we paid another visit. He said he's voting for Kamala Harris.
Is it a vote for Vice President Harris or against Donald Trump?
For Harris. No, let me rephrase that. Both. Both, yeah.
It's a vote against Trump and for Harris.
Yes.
The fight is on for Wisconsin,
Are we ready to win?
with Harris and Trump set to make dueling visits Friday
We're winning. We're winning.
for the second time in 3 days.
I don't want to make any predictions because I think it's that close.
Caroline Quinlan does not see a perfect option on either ticket. When we spoke this summer, her frustrations were clear.
Both parties have their extreme side, and no one's in the middle.
From her vantage point in the critical suburbs of Milwaukee, no longer dominated by Republicans alone, she said issues are driving her decision.
I'm going to vote for Trump. You know, when he talks in the big arena, sometimes I'm like, I wish he would tone down his rhetoric and everything. But at the end of the day, I want a person that's going to fix the economy, border, and then national security.
A year-long conversation with voters paints a more nuanced picture of the electorate. For one, the gender gap is hardly absolute.
January 6th, which was a direct threat against our democracy, trying to overthrow a legal election, that was it for me.
To win, the Harris coalition depends upon people like Bruce Need, raised in a Republican family, whose front yard makes his disdain for the former president clear. And Tiffany Kaler, a Republican who's casting a rare vote for the Democratic presidential candidate.
We used to be the party of women to government. We used to be the party of fiscal responsibility. I know there's a lot of Republicans voting for the vice president because we really want to close this chapter in history.
For Trump, the path to victory not only depends on strength in deep red rural areas, but whether he diminishes Democratic margins in the suburbs outside Madison. Brandon Maley leads the Republican Party in fast-growing Dane County.
People think of Madison as such a traditional liberal bastion, but you get outside of Madison, Dane County is the second most populated county. If he does not get at least 23% of the vote in Dane County, he will not win Wisconsin. If he gets 25% or above, he wins, guaranteed.
The campaign draws to a close with many wild cards, including third-party candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose name remains on the ballot.
I don't want your vote. I want you to vote for Donald Trump.
Back at the Apple Holler orchard, Flannery sees a hopeful light at the end of a dark campaign.
It's more than about politics. The future of the country is more important than whether you're a Republican or Democrat.
So more than 1 million voters here in Wisconsin have already cast their ballots earlier. That number will keep rising until the deadline on Sunday. But Wisconsin, of course, such a critical piece of the so-called blue wall. Donald Trump, of course, won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2016. He went on to lose them and lose the presidency in 2020. Frederica, that is why Wisconsin has largely voted with the other states in the blue wall. Only twice in the last half century have they voted differently. So it's why Trump and Harris both back in Wisconsin today. Frederica?
Right. All right. To make those closing arguments. All right. Jeff Zeleny in Milwaukee. Thank you so much. Our coverage in these final days of the presidential campaign now takes us to the White House and CNN's Kevin Liptak. Good morning to you, Kevin. So contrasting events last night from Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. You know, Harris hitting Donald Trump for his comments around protecting women, whether they like it or not. Were his words. Can we expect the same kind of messaging from her today when she is speaking in Wisconsin?
I think we should expect that, and certainly that has become the closing argument for Kamala Harris as this campaign winds up to Election Day, really trying to expose what she says would be Donald Trump's danger for women if he were to be elected. It really does underscore how much of a role the gender gap has played in this election. Kamala Harris very much working to shore up her support among women, white women, black women, suburban women, all of these constituencies that she will need to overperform in if she is to be elected into the Oval Office. And I think it will be interesting when she is in Wisconsin today to see how she responds to those comments that Trump made about Liz Cheney. Harris has campaigned with Liz Cheney in Wisconsin, which is where Liz Cheney was born. So I can certainly expect that you will hear from her about those comments. That has been something of a practice that she has taken throughout this campaign, is to respond in almost real time to some of the more outward and more dangerous statements that we have heard from former President Trump. And that's what she was doing in Arizona yesterday, really going after the former president for that comment he made about protecting women and really trying to underscore some of the dangers that could be in place if Trump were to be elected when it comes to reproductive rights. Listen to a little bit of how she framed it in Arizona.
He simply does not respect the freedom of women or the intelligence of women to know what's in their own best interest and make decisions accordingly. But we trust women.
Now, in Arizona, her message is interesting because she also urged her supporters to go out and vote for a proposition on the ballot there that would enshrine abortion access up until the point of viability in the state's constitution. Democrats are hopeful that these ballot propositions across the country could help drive turnout among supporters for whom abortion rights and reproductive rights is a top issue. And certainly their hope is that they will also cast their ballots for Kamala Harris. So this is certainly an aspect that she will continue hammering away on in the closing stretch of this campaign.
And then, Kevin, President Joe Biden, he is speaking today publicly for the first time since his, the garbage gaffe language. What are the expectations?
Yeah, he'll be in Philadelphia. He will be talking with union groups. This is one of the limited campaign appearances that we've seen from President Biden throughout the course of this campaign. Certainly that was true before that incident involving his comment about supporters of Trump being garbage that the White House later tried to clarify. At the end of the day, a lot of Democrats just think President Biden is a liability on the campaign trail because of his penchant for misspeaking, for giving Republicans an opening to attack him and the vice president. Today, we will see him in Philadelphia. Tomorrow, we'll see him in his hometown of Scranton, but we don't expect to see him alongside Kamala Harris until the end of this campaign. They don't have any joint campaign appearances scheduled, and I think that just tells you everything you need to know about how welcome he is on the campaign trail in the closing stretch of this campaign.
Okay. Kevin Liptak at the White House. Thanks so much.